See, whenever the group enters into a business in a big way, the idea is that you should be at least one of the top two players. There was an industry structure where there was a large market leader, and then the rest were all followers. See, one of the interesting facts is that while people might not be engaged in doing a paint job, but only once in 5 or 6 years, but they all love advertising from paint companies.
Hi everyone. Can Birla Opus upset the domination of Asian paints in the rupees 60,000 crore decorative paints business? Ever since it was launched in early 2024, the newcomer's ambition has been clear and publicly stated. It wants to get to a turnover of rupees 10,000 crore ASAP. It wants to become the clear number two, and it wants to do so profitably. Is it on track to meet those targets? And what have been the disruptive elements it has employed in upsetting the existing order? Let's talk to the CEO of Birla Opus, Rakshit Hargave. He has the answers. Hi, Rakshit. Thank you so much for agreeing to the interview. My first question to you is why decorative paints? Now, Aditya Birla Group is a giant conglomerate and it has interests in telecom, in cement, in metals, in chemicals. And decorative paints is an old business. It's more than 100 years old. It's a mature category. So why would Aditya Birla Group want to enter decorative paints?
So I think the group has been studying paints for over a while. And I think they made the announcement that they have an intent to enter it seriously sometime in January 2021. And I think there are reasons group entering paints. See, whenever the group enters into a business in a big way, the idea is that you should be at least one of the top two players. So if you have a view in terms of how can you be either number one or number two, then the group takes it very seriously. And I think they realized that in paints, there was an industry structure where there was a large market leader, and then the rest were all followers.
Okay.
And hence, there were natural opportunities where the market was structured there. The group could make a sizable opening. Now, if you take a look at the paint industry, what do you need? Number one, to be able to convince the large number of dealers, you need to have manufacturing to be able to manufacture paints because it's also logistics sensitive. So you need local manufacturing, which some of the earlier multinational players who had entered India had not done. But the group has a very strong manufacturing background. It's in Aditya Birla Group is present in many industries where manufacturing is absolutely critical. Secondly, the Aditya Birla Group is also the market leader in putty. So through Ultratech Cement,
Okay.
Aditya Birla Group also owns Birla White Putty, which is the number one putty brand. And as you would know, that putty is nothing but a part of the painting process. So in all interior paints.
How big is that business?
So the usually, about 5% of the paints industry of decorative paints would be putty. So um, if you take a look at the putty industry and add up all the players, organized players, it could be in the range of 4.5, 5,000 crores.
So where was the synergy? The fact that from a distribution point of view, you are already through putty, you are already entering those stores from where you would distribute decorative paints?
So, yes, so all paint dealers keep putty because in all interior painting and otherwise, where it's fresh painting or even in some repainting where you have to cover the wall, you first put putty on which you apply primer paints and then you apply the top coat of decorative paints. So all the dealers who sell putty also sell paints. There are some
Okay.
hardware people also who sell putty who don't sell paints. So with that, we already had through the group an understanding of the paint distribution ecosystem and also an understanding of what paints they sell. So, say for example, if you go to a dealer who sells Asian paints and Berger paints, there was a high probability that he was selling Birla White Putty. So, obviously, there was knowledge in the group in terms of how this distribution channel works. And I think combined with the fact that we have manufacturing expertise, we have some understanding of the paint channel, there is some synergy, and the fact that you have to build a consumer business, and the group is entering into a lot of other consumer businesses. We've entered into jewelry, the fashion retailing business is, anyway the largest of its type in India, and it is now breaking into two separate businesses. So the focus on B2C is obviously there, and I think paints became a part of that whole story.
Okay, Rakshit, tell me, the established order consists of Asian paints, has consisted of Asian paints, Berger, Kansai Nerolac, and Dulux, right? Why has no player until you came in succeeded in getting into this top four? Why has it? Because I think one or two international players have also tried, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So why didn't it work for them?
See, if you take a look at the Indian players, these are the Indian players, and JSW entered the market 6-7 years back. If you take a look at the multinational players, yes, a couple of them did come, but they have not made any significant impact, and they've also kind of withered down. So there are a few reasons. Firstly, manufacturing in paint is reasonably capital intensive.
Okay.
So you can't just buy from someone and start selling it like a reseller. It makes sense to manufacture your own paints. And that means that you have to put capex on the ground. The established players in the paint industry today already had a very friendly understanding of an ecosystem. That there is Asian Paints, which is a market leader, and then there are others, and they would all behave in the same manner. If you take a look at their communication, they all look similar. They all approach dealers in similar ways. Now, in paints, you have to develop strong relationship with the influencers. So the dealer, who is the last mile seller, has a lot of control on the ecosystem. And to break into a dealer is not so easy. So the dealer needs to see a very reasonable, viable reason as to why should he entertain someone else. So the multinational companies which came in, they were not able to convince the dealers, because the dealers believe you when they see that you have your own manufacturing, you're in a position to supply paint stocks to you at short notice. Then only will they give chance to a new player. Because otherwise they say that I start using your paints in my painting ecosystem, and then suddenly you say that I don't have this product. I don't have. So the setting of the supply chain system is intensive. Distribution system is intensive, which the multinationals were not able to do so because it requires time. You have to work with the dealers by putting your feet on the ground. So this is from a distribution point of view, this is an absolutely brick and mortar business.
Okay.
You have to work with the dealers, which they were not able to do.
So, Rakshit, would you say, is this, and what are the peculiarities of the paints business as compared to other businesses? You have seen several of them also. And is it a B2B business really, or is it a B2C business?
No, it is both a B2C and a B2B business. You see, one of the peculiarities is that from a purchase cycle, paints is a bit like white goods. You get your house painted once, maybe in 5 or 6 years. Secondly, the category is slightly more confusing for a lot of people because paint is not one product. You have different kind of paints. You have water-based paints, you have enamel paints, you have wood finish paints, you have waterproofing paints. And you always end up doing a mix and match when you do a house. Secondly, you always have this creation of shades. So when you buy paints, you buy either a more luxurious product, or you buy a value-based product or a premium product, and then you want a particular shade. And the shade is created by a shade generator tinting machine, which is there with the dealer. And most importantly, the whole pricing of paints is not known to people because when you buy something once in 5, 6 years, you don't track the paint and there is nothing called an MRP because you're not buying packs. Anyway, the major cost of a painting job is done by the contractor and the painter. The labor cost is more than the cost of the paint. And hence the category becomes slightly more opaque. So the lack of transparency in terms of how much will I use, what will I pay, what kind of warranty, what kind of guarantee makes this category slightly more difficult, which is why the influencers, painters, contractors, and dealers end up playing an important part along with architects, designers, and hence the end consumer depends on a lot of second party and third party help to understand to do a paint job. So, which is why it is like it's slightly more challenging.
Yes.
Consumer.
So sorry to interrupt you, but so it is a B2B. I mean, there are all these influencers, the dealer, the architect, the painter, all these people are in the middle, right? And as you said, that a buyer does not remember 6 years later what he or she had paid earlier, right? And yet, paints companies spend a lot of money advertising. I mean, I don't know the percentage exactly. Then, if it is so heavily B2B influenced, then is it possible to create pull, like especially for new
Yeah.
player like?
No, so like I said, it's not only a B2B. You see, what is B2B? When the transaction happens between a business entity and another business entity. So the way you deal with dealers is that, yes, it's the relationship that you need to have with the business dealer is a very B2B. But at the end of the day, the end consumer who's coming to make a choice has a voice of his own, has a choice of the brand, and works along with the influencer, whether it is a contractor, painter, or architect, to decide. But yes, the ability of the dealer and the ability of the architect to change the ultimate brand with the consumer also exists. But the consumer, if he is sure by virtue of advertising and by virtue of the pull that has been created, also has a strong voice, which is why we say it's a hybrid category. Uh, and if you don't create a brand, and if you leave it only to dealers and painters and contractors, then they might end up selling the brand where they get probably the highest margin, which might not be the best paint. Which is why there are these checks and balances.
Rakshit, I noticed that in a lot of communication from the company, you underline the fact that the group is committed to investing 10,000 crores in setting up this business, right? And I think all of it or almost all of it has been invested already, right? So why do you keep on underlining the fact that there's such a large investment?
See, I think for the paint ecosystem, whether it's the dealers and also people who are watching us, it's important to give this commitment that we are committed to setting up 6 manufacturing units, a large R&D across various geographical locations, because this gives an intent to create capacity. And if I am creating capacity, I will do what it takes to also get them sold and offtakes. Also, from a dealer point of view, he feels a lot more comfortable that this company is not a company which is entering the market for testing. We've had a couple of other paint players who entered the market with single factory and with a single factory trying to supply the whole of India. You can't do that. You can't keep the portfolio. You can't have the range. So I think the
So how,
messaging
how
is
many
very
factories, how many factories do you have now?
six.
Six already. Okay. All operational?
Yeah, the sixth one is also more or less operational. So they're all
Oh,
operational.
all right. Okay.
Uh, so the the advantage of this is that there's a lot of confidence which goes into the ecosystem that Birla Opus is here to stay. They have wide manufacturing. They are available from 6 factories. We have close to 140 depots. And hence the confidence in supply chain and the ability to give you the right stock at the right time is what makes the dealer a lot more confident about you as a brand. And which is why we emphasize that this capex and capacity creation. And ultimately, if I have capacity share, I will also be able to create the pull to be able to get my rightful market share.
So I have actually two questions. I'll put them both to you. One is that you set up a very large lab, if I'm not wrong, more than 100 people, right, into creating the product and designing the product. And the other thing was that you also set up your sales force, I think about 2 years before
Hmm.
you launched the product. Could you explain both the reasons why? Because especially with regard to the sales force, I remember that in the business there was the sense of why are they doing this? They're just paying salaries to a sales force who has nothing to sell. But of course, there was a logic. Could you explain that? Both of these.
So yes, we put a lot of homework before we launched. So the homework before we launched extended for more than 3.5 years. And I think if I take the R&D bit first, you see, there are many paint companies, they're all selling paint products. But I think we wanted to come out with products which are better than what exists in the market and products which have been thoroughly tested. And to do this, we also want to develop our own base resins and emulsions because there you can infuse certain properties which is not there with competition products and also which gives you properties which are difficult to copy. Hence, we put up a team in our R&D much in advance to develop these products with differentiating properties. And like a consumer company, we tested these products across 13 cities with more than 500 contractors, painters through different climatic conditions. And we were fully ready with our portfolio. And we did not want to come with a half-baked portfolio. We wanted to come with the full portfolio in the first year. When I say full portfolio, generally all the products which are sold by all decorative companies. And to do that, you needed to have your own team which had done the due diligence and which is why the R&D was set up. And I think the market has appreciated the products that we have brought in because they are definitely superior in terms of quality. And the adoption from the painters and contractors talks about that. And there is distinctive superiority and which was knowingly infused in the products, which is why the R&D had to come.
Did you formally try market? I mean, did you use market research in an extended way before you decided on creating these products?
Yeah. So you see, there are certain products which you know that you have to come with. Then we did market research to find out what are some of the qualities that can be put in these products, which are currently not there in the market. And thirdly, we tweak these products based on actual testing with contractors and painters, starting a year and a half before we launched. And we did across India. And this kind of exercise is not done by any paint company because all of them have assumed that, we can sell what we can. And we've also tested many of our products in labs. We've got certifications. You also need to certify your products for being able to list in many government entities. So for all that, we needed people in advance, which we did.
Okay.
Similar story with the sales team. You see, we wanted to do a census of all the paint stores in India. And we did a
Okay.
census. We did a census, a year and a half before we even launched. We met all the dealers. We geotagged all the dealers. We had all the details of all the dealers. So we exactly knew what is the size of a particular dealer, what does he sell. And this helps us in formulating our selling in plan. How do I manage my inventory? What product sells more in what part of the country? So you can't do that on day one when you launch. So we had a sales team on the ground 2 years before launch, working on all this database. So the day when I launched my products, I had a good repository of information about the sales and distribution system, which would be available in the normal course, maybe to a company, which has already spent 3, 4 years selling paints. But because I wanted to come in one sweep and go national, we put this team to collect all this information for us and do.
You mentioned the fact that consumers buy their, get their homes repainted just once in 5 or 6 years. How can you create engagement at a marketing level? How can you create engagement with consumers over this period so that at least they have some, apart from advertising, they have some residual memory of which was the brand they had used 5 years back? Is there anything paints company can do? Have you used technology for this? What have you tried
Yeah.
there?
So you see, the consumers are also changing. So I think the consumers, while painting your whole house once in 5, 6 years kind of holds, but there are people now who want to do smaller jobs in between. You know, they want to do some waterproofing job, or they want to do some textures, want to change a particular wall. So obviously we are very tech led. I think one of the advantages of coming late is that we've been able to develop a tech ecosystem. The technology ecosystem is also probably the most advanced in the paint industry. How we connect the contractors, how we connect painters, how we connect with consumers, our app. So obviously, for a lot of the people who are now getting on board onto our system, being able to connect with them. And see, one of the interesting fact is that while people might not be engaged in doing a paint job, but only once in 5 or 6 years, but they all love advertising from paint companies. So while they like to see the paint companies advertising, they're also subconsciously forming opinions about the
That's,
brands.
that's interesting, for a business leader to say that they love the advertising for the category. One doesn't hear it often anymore. So
Yeah.
why do you say that? Why do you think they
So
love it?
we've got so much of feedback. You see, we came last year and we came with a one of a type animation, Duniya Ko Rang.
Correct.
Nobody's attempted. I don't think any mainstream company, not even in paint, mainstream consumer brand has used, we've used Pixar quality animation done in Brazil to come with our launch film, I think, which was loved. The music of that film, is now the ringtone of majority of the dealers and the teams, and people keep humming it. So the likability of that commercial, and if you go through social media mentions, was saying it is such a breath of fresh air. We are so happy there's no celebrity. The music is so engaging, and we love it. And I think one of the challenges that we had was that how do you make the brand love uh, ASAP? And I think this gave us a very good beginning. The second campaign which we started, which was Nai Zamane Ka Naya Pain, where we actually wanted in a very humorous manner to show that Birla Opus has great products. And I think it's a paint of the new generation, comes with high quality. And humorously saying that, while old paints are there, I think if you want to move on with the new generation, use these new paints. And I think consumers again loved it. So what we can see from our advertising tracking is that the kind of momentum we've got in about 8, 9 months of advertising is phenomenal. Which brands usually will get in 4 to 5 years. We've been able to get that in less than a year. And I
That's
think
awesome.
you're going to see more communication coming, which is again going to be engaging and entertaining because that's how you want to build a brand. You see, many of the paint brands used to operate in the same space. They would follow a celebrity model. They will follow the similar depiction of a house or a home, same visual from the outside. And there was a lot of misattribution. We realized that many customers, who saw advertising of brand A, in the recall, they said, oh, I think it was brand B. So we wanted to be distinct. And I think our market research work also shown that from a zoning point of view, where do the other paint companies lie and where can you, on your curve, possibly position your paint brand, which we did.
Okay. Rakshit, what was the original, when the launch of Birla Opus was announced, what was the financial target? And have you been able to achieve that? One. And secondly, 3 years from now, what kind of revenue do you expect? Because now all your factories are up, right? And you also had experience of over a year now. So first is what is the original ambition, financial ambition? And secondly, 3 years from now, where would you be?
So, Srikant, we've not shared our financial numbers as yet, and these will be shared at a suitable time in the future. But we have largely met the commitments that we had made. And I think the commitments that we made at the time was launched was all on the basis of 3 year full scale operation.
Hmm.
And, we are now nearing with the start of our last factory. We are more or less close to that time. And we declared that in the 3 years of full scale operation, we want to be 10,000 crores of revenue and we want to be EBITDA break even. So obviously it's a longish journey. And what I can say is that having done 1 year, we are more or less in line of the gate point which we had charted for ourselves at the end of first year. Also, in terms of market share, we are there. We also set ourselves targets for distribution, availability, visibility. So very happy that both from a numerical impact point of view and brand impact point of view, after the first year, we are there on the journey that we defined.
This has been your first stint in the decorative paints business. It was new to you, right? So when you look back over the last year and a half, what is the stuff that seems surprising to you? Whether positively, whether negatively, it does not matter, but stuff about the business that you had not quite expected.
So, well, nothing has really surprised us in a big way because, we had done our homework. But obviously, there are certain uh, features of the paint industry which are very different from the other consumer goods industry. The first one that I would want to talk about is the whole dealer ecosystem. The whole dealer ecosystem is very specific. There are people who are specialized in selling paints, and they have a downstream ecosystem to which they are connected, which is made up of painters, contractors, and customers. This system is very relationship oriented. So while they are always excited to hear, oh, that Aditya Birla Group is coming, and they have very positive opinion of the group, but it still takes a lot of relationship building with them to generate more business because there is always a choice. These paint dealers, and because they exercise so much of power, you see the last mile value addition done in a paint retailer is phenomenal because that's where you actually get the shade that you want. It's unlike other retailers, who are largely traders who just display products and consumers buy it on their own pull. Here, the dealer converts the product into the shade that you want. And hence, the relationship building exercise, and we've already got onto the journey fairly well, is very intense. And I think takes a lot of time, which is very different from the consumer goods industry because there you work with distributors, but distributors are of a different type. You have to make them more efficient and they have to be very good at servicing and they're motivated by different factors. Here, paint dealers are motivated by personal touch, by personal recommendation, contact, being a part of a large family. The families of paint dealers are interconnected with each other. So it's a big ecosystem, which has been a good level of learning.
Yeah, please go ahead. You were saying something.
The other was this whole ecosystem of contractors and adoption of technology and uh, how they are able to, do a paint job and how do they interact with the end consumer is very different because it's not one single product that you're selling, but it's made up of various components. So how do you build the components? And it's like creating a product, a house becomes like a mini factory where you produce the paint and you apply it. And hence a lot of testing, sampling, expectation management. So it becomes a quasi-service industry. And it becomes a quasi-service industry where you actually don't have so much of control because a lot of control is with the contractor. And while the contractor is an individual entity, but if he's using Birla Opus paint, the consumer believes that he is a contractor of Birla Opus. And if the contractor doesn't do a good job, then the consumer will say that Birla Opus did not do a good job. So I think the connectivity with the influencer and contractor and how they can have a bearing on this is also very important.
Now I have a question, Rakshit, which is really about HR. Now look at your situation. When you were starting out with this company, you wanted to create a company that is going to challenge the leaders. Okay, so you needed this challenger type of culture. But on the other hand, you were part of an industrial conglomerate, which was very well established, and it was into a variety of large old businesses. So how did you resolve this conflict? How, in a situation like this, did you manage to create this challenger culture?
Yeah, no, so that's a very relevant question. So I think when we were setting up Birla Opus, and we have already 5,000 plus employees, and literally all the employees have been hired in the last 3 years. And
Okay.
basically, more than 99% of the employees have been hired from outside the Aditya Birla Group. So we've been hiring them
Okay.
from the market.
Mm.
So I think one of the first mandates given to us was that please develop and build a company, Birla Opus, which has its own unique culture, is a young organization, and decides on its own course of action. So I think very early in the journey, we decided to create Birla Opus. At that time, we didn't have even have the name Birla Opus. Yeah, Birla Opus name was also decided during the course of the journey. So we set up our own culture pillars. We enmeshed them along with the group values. So the company did a lot of work in terms of downloading agility, care, courage, vibrancy, and innovation, uh, and letting every employee understand that this is the way Birla Opus will really work. The orientation program of all the new joiners was made very standardized. A lot of interactions and interventions done by the leadership team and also with support from the group in terms of cascading this. Because we ultimately wanted to create like the paint that we are creating, paint, Naya Zamane Ka paint. We also want to create an organization which is a new age organization. Uh, Now, obviously, as a part of Aditya Birla Group, which is a very large group, but if you take a look at the paint business, we are a challenger. So I think creating that startup attitude and saying that while we have all the resources, we are actually a scaled startup where we have been given the resources, but we always said that the ambition that the Opus team needs to have is more than the resources that you have, because then only will you start thinking like a sales startup. So don't think that you are a large company who's been given things on the platter and you're going to execute it as you feel now. You still need to have a lot of hunger, and you still need to feel the pain of, a startup that I need to do more. And I think we were able to get that message into the team very well. So I think it's a combined work done along with the team and the group to create a Birla Opus kind of company that we have.
This has been a very interesting conversation, Rakshit. I'm curious about Birla Opus's journey in the coming years, and I hope we'll meet again soon to discuss it. Until then. In all my years of covering the marketing space, rarely has there been a product launch with the scale and with the ambition of Birla Opus. It has started out well, very impressively indeed, but it's a long journey. Asian Paints is a much loved and trusted brand, and it's going to fight back with everything it has. This is going to be a battle worth watching. I'll see you again next week.